Well, I am so excited. I'm talking with Jennifer Kindel, and she's the bat specialist at the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources. And Jennifer, I just love bats.
And we are so lucky that you love bats.
I do. And but why are bats important? Why should we all embrace bats at least?
Well, bats do a lot for us, whether or not we realize it. So they really benefit us in terms of eating insects and keeping insect populations down. So our agricultural industry really relies on bats.
People say they eat all the mosquitoes. From what I've heard, that's not a huge part of their diet. But I have heard that, I thought they had to go after things that were flying, but I've heard that in an agricultural setting, they actually can take the insects off the plant.
Yes.
And they do a tremendous amount. And that's like millions and millions and millions of dollars?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so it depends on the bat species. So little brown bats actually do eat a lot of mosquitoes, but we've got, and so they'll eat 150 mosquitoes every 10 minutes,
Whoa.
Which equals about 6,000 to 8,000 insects in an evening. Just
that's
mosquitoes.
A lot.
Yeah, so, but big brown bats do eat the beetles and other larger insects. And so they'll eat, 150 big brown bats can eat 1.5 million pests per year and prevent 33 million larvae from hatching. We've also got Brazilian free-tailed bats, which of course is the fastest flying animal on the planet.
Is it?
Yes, and it's a very common bat that we have in attics, and unfortunately, but also that use bat boxes. And those can eat the cornworm. I think it's called the corn earworm moth.
Yeah.
They eat a lot of those, so that really helps.
How about that?
A lot of things. So yeah, they're depending on the species, they eat different kinds of things. So it's nice to have a lot of species. We have 15 different species here, which is pretty exciting.
And didn't you just find a new one that is documented in South Carolina?
Yes, we were really excited to find the gray bat, which is an endangered species that actually seems to be doing well. I think one of the reasons it's still considered endangered is because their populations they're a colonial rooster that come together in big caves. So there's only so many caves that they exist in right now. And so, a natural disaster could potentially wipe them out, unfortunately. But they seem to be doing well, and they're not, their populations aren't declining from white nose syndrome, which is nice.
Yes.
Yeah, so in any case, we found them just in the Blue Ridge ecoregion of South Carolina this fall, roosting in little crevices of bridges. So it took us about 4 years to find them, but we tried a lot of different things. It's a whole story, and we're really excited to finally add them to our list.
Well, and we had a nurse colony in our attic.
Of bats.
Yeah. And they were in a soffit, whatever a soffit is. But in the afternoon, we'd go out and watch them emerge, and we have cloudbirds, and they look like mercury.
Yeah.
I mean, they just kind of just flow out like mercury, and then they just take off.
Totally. It's just so fun to watch, right? Because like you said, it's a great description. They're just like falling out, and it's really fun to watch them emerge from bat boxes. It's kind of the easiest, most relaxing way to survey for an animal, I think, is you sit back in a chair with your favorite drink and, just watch them come out and estimate their numbers while the sun's setting. And it's really fun. And then you're watching them eat all the insects around you, too. So,
but they're considered an indicator species. So they're kind of the health of the bat population in your area is somewhat indicative of the health of your ecosystem.
That's right. Yes. So bats do bioaccumulate chemicals, just like birds do and other creatures. So one thing I always tell people is they're the natural predator of insects. And so when you're spraying pesticides, you end up hurting the natural predator of the things you're trying to kill. So keeping an eye on...
Because they can't wash their food.
Right, exactly. Yes. And so... So some of the numbers, and I guess I didn't say those, but in terms of what bats save the ag industry, it's $23 billion they save the ag industry for the U.S. every year. And then in South Carolina, it's $115 million that bats save our agricultural industry. Gosh. So it's a lot of money, and they really help out our farmers. So if, I know a farmer in Georgia who had pecans put up bat boxes, and because the bats protect pecans as well.
Whoa.
And so eating all the insects that destroy pecans. And so they were able to stop using pesticides because they put up a few bat boxes and had thousands of Brazilian free-tailed bats eating
Good heavens.
those things. Yes. So I'm like, yes, that's such a great story.
Yeah, pecans, which are native to this part of the world, and then the bats, gosh, it just all fits together beautifully, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Jennifer, people are always concerned about bats and rabies, and rabies is an extraordinarily serious concern, but how often are bats carrying rabies, and what's the protocol, and what do you know about that?
Yes, so bats are not riddled with disease, as people do think sometimes. So less than 1% of natural bat populations have rabies. But as you said, rabies is scary, so it's important to understand it and what you can do around bats. For example, any bat that's down on the ground is probably not doing very well. So it's always good to teach your kids and other adults never touch a downed bat because it's probably not healthy. So if you get a bat in your house, for example, the first thing you need to do is once you see it in the house, make sure you isolate it, get everyone out of that room and isolate the bat, and then call DHEC because they will walk you through the 3 potential exposure scenarios. And if none of those 3 things happen, then you can go ahead and let the bat out. But if they had, then they'll talk to you about what the next steps are.
Okay.
And so those 3 things are, if you wake up with a bat in your room, it's possible a bat could have bit you without you knowing it. So that's potential exposure. The other is if you have, if you've picked up a bat or touched a bat with your bare hands, that's potential exposure. They could have bit and you wouldn't maybe have known. And then the third, of course, is if you have pets or children or anyone who might not be able to tell you that they've gotten bit by a bat. So that's the third potential exposure. So
so don't open the window and shove, and screw it off. Wait, call DHEC and then do it. Okay.
Yes, perfect. I know it's the first reaction, but just isolate it first.
Sure. No, we want to be careful.
Yeah, because that way they'll be able to test the bat, and if it's negative, then you don't have any worries at all. And then if you do, if it is positive, then they'll help you learn more about getting the
what
vaccine.
You need to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Save your life. I said I had a nurse colony of bats up in a soffit in the attic somewhere, and I just didn't worry about it. But I understand that probably wasn't the best response. I needed to leave them as long as the babies were there because I didn't want to have do something and not let the mamas be able to get back to the babies, or the babies when they could fly leave. Exactly. But you said you can call wildlife pest management people?
Yeah, wildlife control operators. They know all about all the details for what to do. So they will come and look at your house to see where the bats are entering and exiting, and then they'll they'll close off some of those areas and put up a device that lets the bats out but not go back in.
And but in my case, if I already had the babies, they could make certain that the bats couldn't come down in the part of the house that we were living in.
Exactly.
And then they would have on their calendar when to come back, when the babies would all be gone, and they could put something up to keep them from coming back the next year.
Exactly.
And you could put up a bat house in your yard, which would be a better place for them to live.
Very good. Okay. Yes, exactly. So timing is key on that. So you can learn more on our website, but a good time to exclude is during early spring and during the fall.
I am always trying to tell people to be less tidy in their yards. I'm trying to promote Doug Tallamy's Homegrown National Park movement and all that. And so I love palmetto trees, which are not a tree, but it is our state tree. And so many people go out there and tidy them up and tidy them up and tidy them up. And I understand that some of our bats like to take shelter or roost under those old fronds that are hanging down.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So we have this beautiful bat called the northern yellow bat. That's very rare. Coastal bat. And it's actually one of our largest bats. And it loves to use those dead palm fronds. So it'll roost underneath those for protection. So that's a good reason to leave them is you might have this very rare bat using the palm fronds.
Since I love bats, I'd like to put maybe some bat boxes up. Are they often used by bats? If I put one up, you think eventually I'll have some bats in it?
Yes, if you do it right. So you do have to put them up a certain amount of distance from the ground so they can fall out and catch the air. So like 12 feet high. So it's a little challenging to get those up, but once you do, They also need to have sun. That's like 6 hours of sunlight.
All right.
Probably closer to 4 on the coast because it gets pretty toasty. But that keeps the pups warm.
Oh.
So which is really important. So if you do all the right things, and the bats need the habitat, they will use it. But sometimes it can take up to 3 years before they start.
And there's someone in Travelers Rest who just has been doing all kinds of wonderful things for bats.
Yes. John Gillespie is the Batman of Travelers Rest, and he has 8 or 9 boxes now on this old historic building that he was trying to keep the bats out of originally, which he did. And then the bats were like, great, we love these boxes. And so there's 1,000 plus bats that end up coming out of all those boxes. So he is an amazing guy, and he builds bat boxes, and we have a celebration of bats the end of October for Bat Week there. So you can come see them anytime, but they'll come out of the boxes.
Now, I guess there are bats everywhere except Antarctica. I don't know.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yep, they're worldwide.
And lots of them are pollinators.
Yes.
And some of them are big, some of them are fruit eaters.
Oh my
Tell me a
goodness.
little bit about them.
Okay, so we have over 1,400 species of bats in the world, and we have our insectivorous bats here, which are the little guys. But there are bats called flying foxes, which are amazing. If you take a look, you will see on the internet, 6-foot wingspan is the biggest.
That's huge.
It's huge. And I'm like, it's scary when you first look at it, but understand they are fruit bats, and they help by pollinating and spreading seeds. So
Spreading seeds, of course.
Yes. And so we really benefit from them, even though they don't live here, in that they pollinate things like the agave plant, so we can thank them for tequila. They also pollinate banana plants, so you can thank them in the morning with your breakfast banana. And then they also spread the seeds of cocoa, so also you can thank them for chocolate, and they spread the seeds of pepper, and I think 500 other species. So they do a lot, and then they also protect a lot of our crops, as we mentioned before. So they'll protect cotton and corn and rice and coffee.
Golly.
So you can spend a full day eating things that bats have helped provide you, between bananas and coffee and chocolate and tequila, depending on your day.
Okay. And so I imagine you've probably got a page on your website at DNR about bats.
Yes,
And
we do.
Yeah.
We do, and we have a lot on there. So feel free to check it out. But there's some information about our Bat Watch program, which is a citizen science program. If you have bats in a box and you want to count them, you can do that twice a year and put the numbers
like the Great American Bird Count.
Yes. So that's pretty fun. And then, a lot of information about, different species we have here.
Reasons to love bats.
Yes, so many reasons to love bats.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jennifer, I want to thank you so much. I hope that people will realize that these creatures were here before we were, and that we have to make room for them in our lives, and that they can bring you a lot of joy.
They really can. I mean, you would be surprised. If you go out and watch bats coming out of a box, you might be like, okay, that's kind of cool.
Well, it was cool of you to come down and tell us. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.